Oh,
Okay, so Jeannie has brought another tree that we can work with today. You said that you got this, you think you got it as a cutting a couple years ago?
I believe I got it as a cutting at a Kawa meeting,
Okay.
maybe 3 years ago.
All right, this is a Kingman ficus. It's a cutting. Has some issues. It's, again, was nothing but a cutting. We're going to start its life for bonsai. Okay?
I've been doing nothing but watering it and fertilizing it.
Watering it and fertilizing it. So, to reiterate what we talked about before, when you first start a tree for bonsai, you want to have a 5-year plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
The issues that this particular tree has, this is a Kingman ficus or a Golden Gate ficus, also called tiger bark ficus. You can see why it's called tiger bark. It has a nice tiger bark. The leaves are bigger than some, smaller than others. These leaves will get much smaller with bonsai culture. They do require a little bit more stringent maintenance as far as defoliation and trimming back to keep it tight. But I love them. They're one of my favorites for sure. This particular ficus hasn't had any previous work other than it was a nice cutting that was put in a pot and it has just let grow. They backbud exceedingly well from the bare wood. It was fertilized a few weeks ago, and it's issuing aerial roots like we talked about before, which if you do decide to cut these off are great, because then you put them in a pot and they root almost 100% with the aerial roots on them. I took a little bit of a preemptive look on this tree. Jeannie said you wanted to have smaller trees, right? Shohin trees, nice quality trees you can show.
Nice quality.
Okay.
I'd like to say that this I did cut. It was way down, almost to the bottom of the pot, and the roots were coming out the bottom, and masses of roots out of the bottom that I cut off.
Okay.
But that's the only thing I did, and I did that a couple of weeks ago.
Okay. So we're going to be a little bit more aggressive. We're going to start its life as bonsai. We're going to cut it to a line. We're going to cut it taper, both on the trunk and on the branches. Because the branches are out here. You have some nice thickness started, but you don't have any tighter branches. A lot of times I don't defoliate a ficus if I'm trying to thicken it up and heal wounds. However, this guy, the shoots are out far and there's nothing in here. So a lot of these I'm going to cut back just to let the sunlight in there to start activating other buds. Some of the biggest issues that this tree has is you have 3 branches that are grown from the same location. If they're left, all 3 of them, you'll end up getting reverse taper. You have aerial roots that are starting to issue midway up down the trunk. If they're left to their own devices, they'll start creating reverse taper issues. So we eliminate that.
Could you explain what reverse taper is?
If you look at a bonsai tree from the base, as it works its way up, the trunk it should get thinner and thinner and thinner.
Okay.
If it goes out and there's like 2 or 3 branches coming from one location, or an aerial roots is hitting the ground and growing and thickening, sometimes what will happen is this thick trunk that's getting thinner and thinner all of a sudden will get thicker again.
Okay.
And it becomes what we call a distraction. It's a clown nose. When you look at the tree, it's something that you notice. So if you look at this tree, you have some issues that are going to have to be remedied when we take it out of this pot. You may have to change the angle. Before we do any heavy cutting, it's a good idea to take it out here and just to see where your base is at, so we know exactly where your front's going to be. I see 2 trees here. I see a nice low one right here with this is your front and this is your apex. It's a nice little true shohin. It'll end up finishing out at about 8 inches. And then you have a taller tree that'll be about 12 inches, but it's not nearly as good of a tree. It still has some movement. It's just you have what we call a straight section right here, which is pretty distracting. Same thing with this other one.
You're thinking it should be a shohin.
I think it should be a smaller tree. Even though it has the larger leaves, you can get these down tight. And they do. This develops really nicely. I mean, it's a great tree. See how vigorous it is, how great and aggressive the roots are. I love tiger bark. These are about half the size of regular microcarpa leaves normally, and with work they get even smaller. You can get Ficus microcarpa leaves pretty small as well. These get even tinier. So if you're okay with a shorter tree, I'll cut it to a line.
Yes, it's a learning
Okay.
for me and learning for everybody else
Okay.
that's watching this.
Yeah, that'd be good. The other thing is you're going to have some more cuttings.
Okay.
First example, this one has an aerial root. You just plant this.
Okay.
It's not going to be a great individual tree at this point, but after a couple cuts it will be. Or you could make a forest out of it.
That I would like to do.
Yeah, forest?
Mm-hmm.
These are perfect for forest material. It's nice.
Ooh, look at that bleed.
Yep.
You can see it glistening. It's
Yep,
bleeding
that
right out.
yeah shows you the latex that ficuses create. I'm going to do a little bit tighter cut on this, and then I'm going to use my concave cutters to really do a final cut. Just like before, I like to do a convex cut with a large wound, and then I'll use my flex cut to cut it smooth. I want it to where once it rolls over, I ideally don't want to have a bulge. I just want to have a nice smooth transition. I also have some aerial roots that are right below this cut. I'm going to actually take them off because they're too high.
The most difficult point for me at this point in time is I like the creativity, I guess, to be able to look and see what it could be in the future.
Sure. Makes perfect sense. You have a branch here that's low and also is almost a barbell to the other branch. And it's doing that almost reverse taper. Here's an aerial root. I'm going to take that aerial root off so people can see it a little better, hopefully. I'm also going to take some of your roots and I'm going to cut them back to create that taper on the roots. You don't want to have long straight roots with no
I've
taper.
never seen a tree that grew roots as aggressively as this one did.
No, this is impressive for sure. So now we're kind of starting its line. So we've taken it, we've cut the roots, we cut the redundant nabari. Eventually it's going to be cut right here, but we got to wait till we get better feeder roots. This will be the front right here. First branch, nice nabari. We have to have more rootage. Second branch, this needs to back bud, probably clear up over to here and cut this off and regrow it. I also would like to have it to back bud about midway on this branch. This is the apex temporarily, but we'll have the apex about half that distance. We could even take this whole thing off and have it sprout about where my thumbnail is here for your apex, and then another one here. We need a back branch, but that's a nice, there's your front right about there. Have a few more years to go, but it's great. Has a pretty good sized wound that we need to seal. I've used the blade to cut it. I'll put some cut clay on here. These are going to be buried a little deep because we want to have more nabari popping along the edges. But now it's kind of started its life for bonsai. Jeannie's going to just grow it for a year or two. Then we'll cut all this off that's on my hand once the nabari is taken off a little better. And we get back budding and we'll be able to do some more cuts. You have any questions, Jeannie?
No, I don't.
All right. Thanks for watching.